Yes, yes.
Hi.
There we go. Hi.
Hi, hi,
Good
hi.
morning.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, well, thank you for joining me. I'm
My
a big
pleasure.
fan of your work, and we also have a lot in common. Um, so, good morning, everybody. This is Acurda, and I have Ernesto Ortiz today. Would you like to present yourself with your name?
Well, it's Ernesto Ortiz.
Ortiz. Okay.
Ortiz, yes.
Ortiz. Ernesto is the founder and director of The Journey to the Heart, a company dedicated to uplifting consciousness and well-being of people. He is a noted artist, author, facilitator, teacher, and therapist. And during the past 25 years, Ernesto has facilitated hundreds of workshops and seminars all over the world. I mean, there really isn't a continent that you have not really done great work on. Would you like to tell me more about yourself, like what you would like people to know about you?
Uh,
I mean, you're a curandero. I mean, there's like you've really done a lot of different types of work in the span of your life. And is there anything
yeah.
else that you feel is important to talk about? I mean, the curandero, I studied
Well,
for. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say that those are all labels, really, and the label defines the quality of the product. Although, of course, in today's world, we have many labels that are fake, that are duplicate. So to me, how do I define myself? I don't want to define myself by labels. I want to define myself by my actions, and 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 I have had the great opportunity to live a very rich life from the time of my birth to the present, and I think that my karma, in a way, has, as it is for most of us, it continues to define the way that I walk my life. Uh, what defines me is just simply my willingness, my deep desire to bring consciousness, awareness, the seeds of enlightenment into the minds and hearts of people, regardless as to the label that someone wants to put on me, or regardless of the type of teaching that I am delivering. The goal is essentially the same. Although with my teachings, as it is with my life, I try uh, to blend as much as I can with nature, even though for the most part I live and work and operate in urban environments. I am also blessed to be able to create the time and space where I can be one with nature, and that is what that nourished me. And not only that, but to be able to extract from nature the qualities of the four elements, fire, water, air, and earth, and then tailor my teaching to those elements, regardless as to what I'm teaching. I could be teaching, I don't know, sacred geometry or trance dance or the Akashic Records, and the intention is basically the same. So I don't know, a long time ago, about 10 years ago or something, someone called me from NPR, National Public Radio, and they said, we have heard or read or something that you're a shaman. And I said, no, I'm not. And that person, that lady that was, doing the initial interview, said, but I'm reading all things about yourself, and it says that you're a shaman and this. And I said, shamanism is a lifelong practice that once again, is a label, and people and people's egos get stroked by a certain label that that makes them feel wonderful. So I told this lady that I practice shamanism, but I don't consider myself being a shaman. And then she said, well, when did you start studying this? I said, my answer was, I was exposed to the world of Mexican shamanism and mysticism without knowing what it was when I was 7, 8 years old. So it's been a part of my entire life. And she says, but you don't even, after a lifetime, you don't consider to be yourself a shaman? And I said, no. And so I lost the interview. Not that the interview that was that important to me, but what I was trying to convey is the message that no matter how you look at it, any label, any title, when it changes or is broken or something happens to it, is going to lead us to pain and suffering. And my teachings are about in a simple, easy way, let go of the past history, let go of what is imprinted in your DNA, start creating the internal energy, movement, frequencies, vibrations that will allow you to turn a switch as easy as you turn the light switch on your home. But people are too attached to a specific outcome, including the specific outcome of being in pain or being miserable or being depressed or whatever. I mean, there's hundreds of attachments that can ultimately lead to suffering. So my teaching is about telling you it's okay to drop the guard. It's okay to learn how to not to be in some kind of pain, physical, emotional, spiritual. It's okay to not be attached to shape and form, although that is quite difficult, especially in today's world when narcissism has become, with the selfie world, the most prevalent around the world. So I don't know, I can just keep on talking, but maybe you want to ask me a question.
Well, what came to me is I love that because you're able to be in the flow of what's really, the flow of existence, with the elements, is when you let go of form. And I was doing work with somebody not too long ago, and Mother Mary came to me, and the message is all you really have to do or need to do is just to love the thing that's in front of you. That's the medicine. That's the miracle. You don't have to, worry about changing the world or any of that. Just love that one thing that's right in front of you, and that changes everything. And it was so simple and so profound for me. And that's truly how I try to live my life. And you have written several books about the Akashic Records.
We can have all of the intentions to change the world. We can get into the hoorah movement, to change the world. But we cannot change the world if we don't first start looking deep within and changing the hundreds of thousands of frequencies that keep us from achieving their ultimate and greatest potential. And with that, impact the world around us to the best of our ability.
Yeah, so, and that's really what this summit is about for me, is, really putting out there the work with DNA, the frequencies inside DNA, the light that's inside DNA. And, for me, I'm experiencing my multidimensional living through the layers of my DNA. And, what is happening in the microcosm is happening in the macrocosm. And so really being able to move and listen more to, the elements inside my body, the frequencies inside my body, therefore I'm able to, move and change everything around me, because I believe that I'm creating everything around me. And so when I tap into those multidimensional layers, you know, the light layers of myself, I'm able to change everything around me.
So the question is, how did you get there? Because people are listening to you or me right now and saying, wow, that sounds great. I would love to experience or to feel that, but they don't think this way, but they are so overwhelmed with layers and layers and layers of conditioning that the question is, how do you arrive at that point, at that level of great sensitivity that gives you the ability to have other experiences outside of the normal experience that most people are having? So how did you get there? That is the question. And to me, there are many people in today's world that are looking for that. And you were going to ask me a question about the Akashic Records. So I'm going to let you ask that question. But to me, when the individual finds a tool, we all need a tool to build something. A carpenter is going to have a very difficult time building a cabinet without a hammer. You know, you can use a rock, but it's not quite the same. Okay, so we all need a tool. So when we find that tool, that teaching, that gives us the ability to, first of all, look deep within the self, and then without any judgment, criticism, anger, or any other type of negative issue, to be willing to start understanding the way this particular belief or behavior is shaping up our reality, and how many of those beliefs or conditions are being handed down. We are inheriting, because of genealogy, most of these through our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents, etc. Okay, so when we have a tool that gives us the crystal clarity to look at all of these and the ramifications of this particular belief in our lives, in your life, and what would happen if you were able to change that imprint, because it's not going to go away, you know, it's going to change or be modified into something else. So a lot of people want to get rid of things. They want to get rid of this pattern. They want to get rid of this addiction. They want to get rid of this codependency. They want to cut the cords between that person and the lover, the ex-lover, and most of that doesn't work, because it's not about cutting cords, but it's about unplugging. It's not about eliminating something, the struggle, the fight of the addicted personality to heal. That is not going to go away, but changing the relationship is what will directly impact the gene that has been operating in our lives for several generations into the past and will carry on with you into the future. And that particular impact at a gene level with consciousness, that's the number one prerequisite, using that tool that is working for you. But when you impact that one gene, then it's like the gongs that you have behind you. You can give them a sub impact, and the vibration will go throughout the gong. So is that gene that goes into the gene pool to impact your past, giving those in the past the opportunity to heal, even though they may be dead already, because that gene pool continues into the future. We know it. Mm-hmm. And so by having that one technique or tool, and by having the courage to look deep within, and not the pseudo spirituality that is so prevalent in the world today, in which I just want to look good. And this has been part of religion, you know, is to look at me on Sunday when I go to church, but between Monday and Friday, I am a completely different person, right? But the true spiritual seeker is the one that that tries to the best of our ability, and we cannot let go completely of shape and form. We need shape and form in order to operate in life. Otherwise, we would not be having life.
Right.
So we cannot let go of completely of the attachment to form. Otherwise, we'd be, instead of sitting where you are and where I am, and when the listeners are sitting, we would be sitting in the streets of India or someplace with a stick in our hands and just a little bag around our shoulders. And that's a different life altogether. But that one is also a life of choice, and a life that is giving us the opportunity, regardless as to where we are, to know that, number one, this is the sum total of all of our life experiences, hundreds, thousands, many times. So by knowing that this is the sum total of all of our life experiences, regardless as to where we are in our personal karmic evolution, without having to compare to anyone else, then we can evolve within that karmic evolution and be able to shape and impact our world internally and externally in a positive way. And in this way, we can change the world.
Yes, yes. This, a lot of schools of religious philosophy or modalities are kind of like teaching to get out of the body, to like ascend out of the body. And, for me, I recognize exactly what you're saying. And it's like, this body is such a gift. It's a gift. It is a precious, it's our gold. It's our temple. It's our gold. And, this life is it's so perfect and so magical. And we can create anything that we want with it. We manifested this body. Like, why would you want to leave it? Make it everything that you can make it, create this life. And, when we talk about the processes, for me, like you, the Akashic Records is one of my processes, how I got here. Okay. The work that I do, and lineage clearing, and then the DNA, rewriting and reworking the DNA and rebuilding it, with light and sacred geometry. So I would like to know from you, what does the Akashic Records mean for you?
I mean, it's such a big question.
It's such a big question.
I mean, what do they mean to me? They mean a grain of sand.
I love that answer.
And if you understand what is within a grain of sand, then you would know that within a single grain of sand, there are the equal amount of atoms that exist in our own Milky Way. Mm-hmm. So what are the Akashic Records? The Akashic Records are, let's call it Akasha before the Akashic Records. So what is Akasha? And Akasha is a field of unlimited potential. It's an energetic field that is everywhere. It's right here in front of every one of us right now. But if we are not capable of touching it, perceiving it, feeling it, pulling it, shaping it, that means that we are not vibrating at the frequency of Akasha. Mm-hmm. Visionaries, seers, shamans, etc., for centuries that have specific and unique abilities have been able to do just this. But if we don't have those abilities, then those frequencies just simply pass us by without us noticing. We can only notice the frequencies that are registered within our body, within our field. And if we're vibrating at 500 hertz, and Akasha is from 501 to infinity, then we don't perceive it. We perceive only from 500 down. So if we start fine-tuning our senses, if we start learning how to, then we can tap, meaning jump into this field. Science is such a wonderful thing that we have today in our lives that is coming to prove or validate many things that we have known for centuries. And quantum physicists in 2014 validated that there is a field of energy that is present everywhere, that is so thick and dense that you can hardly see it, that moves at 0.000001 speed, but is there. And what is the function of this field that is everywhere? You know, and around every planet, every flower, every in the universe. What is this? And they call it the Akashic fields. And the function of this field is to record energy outputs of every living organism, and everything is alive in the universe. So what are the Akashic Records? They are this universal galactic energy that at a galactic universal level, imagine the beyond and the beyond and the beyond, if we can. That whatever wraps all of that like a membrane is the Akashic fields. So we bring it from that gigantic galactic concept down to our Milky Way so we can see it as a little more understandable. Well, everything that wraps around every star, everything that we see with a microscope is wrapped around the Akashic energy, the Akashic fields. And then we reduce it even more, if you like, and let's come down to our solar system. And then let's reduce it more and come to our planet. So we have Mother Earth, Mama Gaia, Pachamama. And everything that surrounds it, that is inside and outside, is this field. Now, since we know that this field primary function is to record the input, the output, every living organism, now we can have the understanding that from the largest to the smallest, those outputs are creating records, and those are the Akashic Records. So now we can bring it from the global, meaning the world, the earth, to a culture, a group somewhere in the world that has been repeating a group karma for years and years and years. And we bring it down even more to our families and the family dynamics between us that are creating records. And then we reduce it even more to the self. And then we have our own Akashic Records. So what are the Akashic Records is all of that and more, but they are the sum total of the evolutions of our lifetimes from the moment of our soul's inception to this very moment. And the recording of all that. So if we want to look deep within ourselves to do everything that we already talked about, that one tool to me is the one that if we learn how to use, it gives us the opportunity to consciously, and that is the key, consciously jump into the Akashic fields as if it was a pool, and be able to swim on this field or float or navigate, fly, whatever you want, unlimited, to the past, to clear any karma that you have made with yourself or with others. It gives you the ability to have the direction to see deep within. But the key of all of this is that if we do this at an intellectual level, we're going to obtain knowledge, which is great. But knowledge by itself is meaningless. It is not transformed into wisdom. So no matter what it is, no matter how we look at it, the moment of the inception of something that is present in our lives had a specific emotional component to make it be an impression in our field, in our fabric. And that one something, what is it, if he has some type of negative vibration and connected to any kind of pain, addiction, or anything from the past to the present, then by looking at this particular issue and and allow the story to go away. The story is irrelevant. But what is the emotional imprint that that story left behind? And then if we're capable of using knowledge and to cultivate this knowledge that may take weeks, months, or years, that's why I say I'm not a shaman, you know, because it's a lifetime work. I do the work, but it's a lifetime. So if we can cultivate that knowledge and turn it into wisdom, then our reaction to that initial imprint is not going to be from the emotional body that is connected to the pain, but it's going to be, the reaction is going to be from the emotional body that has transformed that pain into wisdom. And then anything at all, anything that has ever happened in this life or any previous life for that matter, if you want to, you know, I don't go so much into past lives. I think we have enough material to work through in this life. But if stuff comes up from the past, then we address it, we look at it like this. And then if we're capable of arriving, because of our spiritual practice, at a point where we can sit as a true witness in the space of equanimity and look at anything, no matter how bad or ugly, either you have created or you were the recipient of that energy, regardless as to how bad it is. And in my class, I give some personal examples. I mean, life has not always been for me a bed of rose petals. I've experienced the dark night of my soul, you know, twice in this life, and that is very, very, very intense.
Yes.
But the practice is what brings it all to the point of wisdom, you know. So that is the key, to be able to get to that seat of the witness and to have enough wisdom to look at any situation from a space of equanimity. And then from the space of equanimity, we can then extract everything that we learned about ourselves in relation to that event, either externally or internally created, and to see the beautiful teachings that we can extract to make us be who we are today. It's a choice.
Yes.
We can stay in the body of pain, or we can stay in the body of wisdom, and then use that, you know. And what that is going to do, once again, that if you heal that, then that is going to be one little pop that opens up like a little tiny, tiny bubble, okay, that contains within it, like a grain of sand, contains all that is needed, that when it bursts open, the substance that is inside of that little micro tiny bubble, okay, is sufficient to impact your entire life.
Yes.
It's sufficient to impact your personal healing. It's sufficient to give direction and to impact, most importantly, your genealogy to the present and to the future. I mean, I can keep talking about this as to how we can, with certain practices, impact our genealogy 7 generations to the past and 7 generations into the future. You know, so what is, if you later on are going to ask me a question like, what is the purpose of my life, or the goal of my teachings, or something like that, is the answer was given to me by two of my greatest teachers. You know, I have my teachers, and I cannot live my life without my teachers. One of them asked me one time, a Tibetan Buddhist, Rinpoche, asked me, what is the goal of your life? And for me, it was very easy. I said, to achieve complete and total enlightenment. And he said, yeah, okay, how are you going to get there? Was his next question. And the answer I gave, you know, is through my practice, through my meditation, my sadhanas and whatever. And he said, okay, that's fine and good. He said, however, the purpose of your life should be to purify your karma. Mm. And that just hit me in such a beautiful way that how can I possibly get to achieve complete and total enlightenment with my practice and all that if my main goal is not purify my karma? And this little tiny bubble, that memory that I've been talking about, is one little portion of the whole that is connected to, in this case, negative karma. Now, we do know, I hope people know, that karma is neutral. You know, many times when people say karma, they immediately go, oh, you know, oh my God, you know, the negative stuff, you know, bad karma. But the truth is that karma is neutral. You know, it's gonna, you know, if we have good actions, good deeds, kind, compassionate, then we are creating positive karma. If we go and steal and do wrong actions, then that's going to create negative karma. And the goal is to have enough positive actions in life that our life starts accumulating more and more positive karma, that when that positive karma or the ingredients that make that positive karma are cultivated, then is going to turn into merit. And karmic merit, when accumulates, is what produces what I call a pop of awakening. A moment in time that suddenly you go, whoa, what happened? Everything is clear. I can see everything. I can feel everything. Lights are more brilliant. Colors are more brilliant. I can see exactly how I created this, the action of all this. What happened to me? A pop of awakening. You're awake, and then life gets in the way. For some people, this can last a few seconds, a few minutes. If you're lucky, a few days. If you're really, really, really lucky, and you have been cultivating this for years and years and years, it may last for several months. Mm-hmm. And then boom, it disappears. What happens? One pop of awakening. And then sometime later, a few years later, boom, another one. Yes. And then another one, and then another one. And little by little, these pops of awakening, like individual cells, they will get to a point in life in which something happens that brings them all together. And all these individual pops of awakening will gravitate into making one big cell. Yes. And then the experience of awakening can then last for months or years.
And that experience of awakening is really our frequency and
it's everything.
Yeah. And for me, you know, the Akashic Records, when you talk about that grain of sand, you know, for me, because my primary healing modality is DNA, is like, it's these little molecules inside the body that are containing all this information. And that when we tap into this information, we have the tools to start moving through our karma, right? And that's how we change the density of our bodies, the consciousness of our bodies, and the frequency of our bodies. And, you know, when we talk about, you know, what is the goal here, I mean, that's for everybody to decide for themselves. But, you know, what I'm seeing right now is that there's this really incredible theory called the inflationary theory right now in science. And it's basically, as we consciously expand, the universe expands. You know, it's ever growing, ever, you know, expanding out. And like, if we can get to a place where we are, you know, in that frequency, we are watching ourselves expand, right? Our evolution, and, you know, all the universes expand. And it was so interesting to hear that, because years ago I studied the Bhagavad Gita, and the Bhagavad Gita talks about how Vishnu, you know, God wanted to know himself and to know love, and you know, Vishnu came and just started creating worlds. And that was his job, is to kind of create worlds and ever expanding, right? And in the center of that was in all the worlds and all the galaxies that there ever are, wherever will be in the infinite, was the sound of Om, which is a frequency. And it's like the frequency of our life, the frequency of the field that you're talking about. I feel anyway. So
Om is a undercurrent tone or sound of the entire universe.
yes, yeah. It was so brilliant. It's like that, those pops of awakening that happen, and you're just like, you know. So let's talk about the masters, the Akash masters, and also guides, and how they play a role in the field and in the Akashic record reading.
Well, you mentioned masters and guides, and they're two separate clubs, so to speak. You know, the masters, if you're referring to the lords of Akasha or the masters of Akasha,
yes,
then they belong to the Akashic club. And the guides, if you are, referring to like spirit guides, angels, that sort of thing, they belong to the etheric club, and they're two different clubs. So the masters, the lords of Akasha, are individuals that have been able to achieve complete and total enlightenment. Many of them have had hundreds or thousands of lifetimes as they have progressed in their own spiritual evolution to completely and totally balance their karma, and they move to the field of Akasha when they choose, to move to the field of Akasha. Call it Christ levels, call it Buddhic fields, it's all up there. And they are there to guide us, to direct us, to be able, they can see with greater clarity the entire Akashic field and the Akashic records when we are plugging in directly with them, the frequency is direct. As well as there are energies in the Akashic fields, that in the Akashic records, you want to call it that have never taken embodiment. So they are the pure essence of spirit. The masters have unlimited wisdom, and when we go into the Akashic fields, into the Akashic records, like entering a library. I call it the Library of Congress of the Soul, a gigantic library that when you are able to enter that library, you can go to the front desk and the masters are there to greet you. And if you want just general information, a weather report, you just stay there with them and that's the end of it. But if you want more specific information about anything at all, whatever your interest may be, if you want to know more about how to begin changing your DNA, if you want to know about the spiritual aspects of gardening, architecture, UFOs, you want to know anything you want, then by asking those masters, they will bring the master that has the expertise to tutor you directly on that particular field. So that master becomes your teacher. Mm-hmm. They are all in the Akashic records, in the Akashic fields. Now, the guides have not balanced 100% of their karma. They're in the process of. And once 51% of karma is balanced, then we begin to have choices. And those choices are like, I'm going to stay in the spirit world, like our guardian angel or a spirit guide, or take embodiment again. So many times when we connect with our spirit guide, then we are connecting to that guide that is in the etheric plane. Now, the etheric plane is a beautiful playground. you know, and in my class, I spend enough time talking about the physical, the mental, the causal. No, I'm sorry, the physical, the astral, the mental, the causal, and then the etheric. The etheric being just a big, beautiful place that if anyone has done any type of meditation or, you know, has ever felt a very deep connection with spirit, most likely that's what you are going. That's, you know, we go to the etheric plane. But the etheric plane, if we look at this in a linear way, we can say that is below the Akashic field or the Akashic plane. Mm-hmm. And the ones that are below don't have the membership to get into the master stage, you know, and that is the difference to me between the masters, teachers, and our spirit guides.
Wonderful. Would you like to talk about your process of accessing the Akashic Records? For me, my process is through DNA. Like I go right into DNA, and for me, the molecules, the strains, or the strands, the way the helixes move, the vortexes, that is the way that I read the Akashic Records for people and through their lineage. I would like to know what your process is.
And you read them for yourself in the same way?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's remarkable. You are a very gifted woman, and that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
That you're capable of doing that. However, I'm going to say that probably 90% of the population of the world doesn't have those abilities. And the way that I access the Akashic Records and the way that I teach others to access the Akashic Records is by using a sacred prayer. This sacred prayer, when we learn it and we understand the many components of the prayer as words that are encoded in sacred geometry and they are alive. And when the formula is used with this prayer, imagine that the Akashic fields have a great big lock and that the prayer is the key. Mm. So when you say this prayer, it's as if you simply insert the key into a lock and you open it to be able to enter the Akashic fields. There are so many patterns of interference that people need to understand, because it is easy, and the one requirement is to have an open heart, but there are many patterns of resistance, including working in the individual that is willing to do the spiritual work. These are unconscious patterns that will prevent people from tapping into or connecting to the Akashic Records, even though they may know the prayer. You know, so the key is to be able to understand the many components that create patterns of interference and how they manifest in our life, and how to use the energy of the Akashic Records, because now we have the key and we have the lock to be able to get into that field and to begin to explore. What I tell my students the very first day, the first 30 minutes of the level 1 class, is that their greatest or biggest obstacle in this field to be able to access the Akashic Records and work with the masters is lack of trust and doubt. And, you know, I see hundreds of people a year in classes. And there is this undercurrent theme of lack of trust. You know, it just happens because of programming. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. Mm-hmm. You know, The moment that your father walked behind you, hit you in the back of the head when you were trying to add up 2 + 2 + 2 and you wrote 7, you know, and he hit you in the back of the head and said, you know, what's the matter with you? Are you stupid? Well, that precise moment, you register that. And that's one of the tiny bubbles that I was talking about.
Yes.
And how that has played out in your life from that moment to the present. So if we are able to recognize and know how to work with patterns of interference, then we can remove that lack of trust. If someone comes with doubt and they begin to doubt their ability because they don't trust, then doubt is a poison. And in Buddhism is known as the demon of doubt. It will start consuming you. And before you come and you take a class with me, you learn, I give all that you need to learn in order to access the Akashic Records. The rest is up to you, practice, etc. And then you start bringing in the doubt into the picture. And people expect to clean 200 lifetimes of karma in one class, a 4-day class. Come on, let's be realistic. Forget about 400 life. You know, the people expect to clean all of the negative karma that they have in this life, just this life, that they have created themselves or directly inherited from their parents and grandparents. Let's just keep it simple to 3 generations. Mm-hmm. Okay? And if people think that they can clean all of that in a 4-day class, give me a break. Let's be realistic about it, you know? So if they don't, if they start applying or bringing doubt into the picture, after 2-3 weeks, maybe a month of practice without getting the firework results that people are expecting in life, then what they're going to do is they're going to turn around and they're going to go back to what I call is the spiritual supermarket. Let's go shopping again.
Yes.
In these past 15 years, the spiritual supermarket exploded.
Yes, it did.
And the consumers are there. Now, also, if the consumer is there, your audience, the audience of many hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, millions looking for answers. But they want the fast answer. We're programmed with that. And if they don't get it, if I may just finish this, what is going to happen is they're going to go back to the spiritual supermarket, and the danger is to end up in the hands of a provider that has not done the real work to be presenting the material.
Yeah. They start blowing in the wind, you know, going back to elements. They blow in the wind and they blow over here for a while and they blow over here for a while. But one thing that I wanted to say about self-doubt and worthiness is what I have been discovering inside myself and with my working with people is that not only there's even a layer of abandonment before the mother and the father, and that is from the creator. And so, you know, as we come into this physical plane and we start to, you know, as we're younger, we recognize or we remember being into this other like oneness with the creator, God, all that is, or whatever. And then we start to feel that separation, right? We come and we feel that separation and we feel abandoned. And then we have the mother and father in our lives.
That is a misconception.
Yeah. And
that
then,
is a misconception. If people, and that's also a belief. See, I have never felt that I have been abandoned by the creator, ever, ever. So where did that come from? Where did that belief come from that we are separated from the creator?
I mean, that's what I've been exploring lately. Where
exactly
that
it is a belief
through lifetime.
Yeah, it's like walking under a ladder. You know, people believe that walking under a ladder is bad luck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who came up with this stupid idea? You know, a guy was walking under a ladder when someone, moved the ladder or something happened. The bucket of paint hit the guy on the head. Well, he created somehow a belief that walking under a ladder is bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost a global belief because I travel all over the world and it's a global belief. In the same way that it's a global belief that we are separated from the Creator. Who created that belief? A guy that was very pissed off at one time and said, oh, God, you abandoned me. You know, I was born without, separated from you. So someone created that belief. And what I'm challenging you, doing right now is challenging you to believe differently.
Oh, yes. I believe differently.
And not only you, but your audience. The moment we realize that we have never been separated or will be separated from the Creator, then that duality and that split of consciousness, which is the split of our ground of being, disappears.
Right. That's exactly the point that I'm making. Yeah.
And if the ground of being is brought into oneness, then the magic happens immediately.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. That's like, I believe that that's the original wound of people is like that they feel the separateness, and that's where the abandonment and all this stuff. But as we move through the densities of our body and our karma, and we realize that we're not separate, the oneness, you're right, that's where all the magic happens. That's where we start tapping into, the Akash field, and we really start creating and living our divinity.
But not until we start challenging and looking at our beliefs.
Yes, 100%.
Because maybe, I don't know about you, but maybe you or many of the people that are listening have a belief that we are separated from the Creator. How many people are Catholic Christians and they believe that we are born with the original sin? Who came up with that thing? Yeah. And that creates the separation, that split. If you're a sinner, you cannot be a part of the Creator. If you are born a sinner already, that means that your soul, your essence is not pure. So how can you be a part of the essence of the Creator if the Creator is completely and totally pure? Well, because the Creator is capable of consuming, transmuting any impurity that you may have. Is almost saying that you are more important, more powerful than the Creator. That because of your sins, you are now separate from the Creator. Mm-hmm. But if we are giving the totality of our essence to the Creator, if we come with anything that is negative, sinful, call it whatever you want, the energy of the Creator will consume it immediately. But we don't think like that.
Yes.
So what is my job? My job is to change and challenge the way people think. And to bring you a completely different point of view to be able to see your life and life itself differently. And when you start using the right method, the right technique, the right system to start changing your vibrational frequency, then you can stay in a space of greater inner awareness that will allow you to start looking at life in a different way.
Yes.
But in order to get to that point, we have to have the courage. We have to have the courage to explore the inner self and to look directly at anything that comes up that is old, nasty, ugly, smelly, not a good thing, and to bring it to the light, and for the light to consume it, for the light to change it, and to do this. And as we do this, the rewards of that self-exploration will also surface. The gems, the jewels that we bring and we put in our altar. And we say, okay, Now that I look at this gem, at this jewel, and it is beautiful, and it's part of me, that gives me the encouragement to keep on going, to continue doing this. And to know that what I am doing is not just for myself, but for others as well. So the question is, what is the function? What is the work that you have to do in this life? What are the footprints that you want to leave behind? What are the actions that you want to be remembered? How do you want? Life will come to an end to every one of us sooner or later. So what is your legacy? What is the legacy that you're creating? You know, how will people remember you? As a kind, compassionate, joyous, adventurous, crazy, wild person? Yes. Or as someone that is always nasty, negative, depressed, that doesn't enjoy life, that is critical, that doesn't know how to love, that is hurtful, you know?
Yes.
How do you want to be remembered? And no matter how you want to be remembered, regardless as to your age, you can be 20 or 85 right now. Regardless of that, start taking the actions to live your life differently. During my classes, many times I say, how many of you want to be enlightened? So a lot of people raise their hand. And then I say, then just imagine what it's like to be enlightened and act that way. Fake it.
Yes.
Fake enlightenment. Not fake it by going to talk about, oh, to others, I'm enlightened, whatever. That's irrelevant. That's stroking the ego. But you fake it with your actions until they become a part of you. No, you start doing that. You start thinking, how would this enlightened being, the Buddha, the Christ, how would he or she handle a situation like this? What would be the emotional reaction? Would they be using foul language? It just surprises me so much to hear spiritual people cursing all the time. The word F this way there, and I'm going like, whoa, excuse me. And they say, and I have challenged some of a personal friend, and she said to me, oh, but that word doesn't have any meaning to me. I said, but it has a very global meaning. Now you're a Buddhist.
It has a vibration.
I said, you're a Buddhist. Do you think that Buddha Sakyamuni or the medicine Buddha, Vajraguru, or any other Buddhas will be speaking using a word like that? So we have to be mindful. We have to be conscious. So the more we start cultivating, you know, our enlightenment by starting using the tools that keeps us sharp, that keeps us, you know, aware, awake, and doing our practice daily, whatever practice may be for individual people, you know, and then we will be able to see some significant changes in our lives. But the most important is how our beliefs create the condition of our lives, and how the condition of our lives is what is creating our reality.
Yes.
We want to change our reality, then go back to number one. Start looking at your belief systems. And the belief systems will take you to number two, the condition of your mind. And number two will take you to number three. Anyway.
Is there any last, I mean, that was beautiful. I mean, we could end right there, and that was so perfect. Is there any last things that you would really like to share from your heart before we end this interview?
Well, everything that I've shared, what happened?
Oh, you're good.
Something happened. You disappear. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I cannot see you. Oh, that's really weird. Anyway, I cannot see you, but I don't know if you're filming this or this is just radio. Everything that I have shared, I've shared with with my heart. So what are my last words to anyone is This is what I said earlier, you know, have the courage to look deep within, regardless as to what has ever happened in your life, and find a tool, a method that will allow you to support that introspection, okay? And learn to live your life with wildness and with wild abandonment, and learn how to love and get rid of your fears.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ernesto. It has been such a privilege to speak with you and to share hearts with you. I truly admire and love your work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ernesto, you've written several books.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Akashic Records, Sacred Exploration of Your Soul's Journey Within the Wisdom of the Collective Consciousness.
I think so.
The Akashic Records, Sacred Wisdom of Transformation. And then you have a book of poetry as well.
Yeah, I have it's called Raw Emotions.